I have my moments.
Hello. First of all, it's a delight to be asked, and thank you very much. And this is the problem with this topic is once you start on this road of being asked to give talks at various places, somebody else in the audience tends to want you to go and give another one somewhere else. But it actually has now taken me around the world, which is actually quite nice at somebody else's expense, so I'm quite pleased about that. If I tell you that I knew nothing about mystery plays at all in 2010, 2011, brought up a Catholic, never mentioned to me throughout my Catholic upbringing at all, served on the altar, sang in the choir, very nearly ended up at seminary school to be a priest, so quite indoctrinated in the Catholic faith, never mentioned, never seen, never done. So when Gloucester Cathedral came to me and said, before this, could I produce for them Edward II, because he's buried in the cathedral, 7th anniversary of his entombment, want to repair his tomb, could you raise us some money, Phil, could you put on the Marlowe play, because I had a theatre company in the town that was very well known, and we took it on, and we did that, and we took it to Bartley Castle where he had the hot poker, those that know the story, and we took it to Warwick Castle, and then it got a life of its own. It went to Oxford, and it went down, and it went to London, and all of a sudden we raised a big cheque, and once you raise a big cheque for a cathedral, be warned, they want you to do it again and again and again and again. So a few years later they came back to me and said, we'd like to do another fundraising event, Phil, we're thinking about doing mystery plays, and to my shame, I very nearly said, which Agatha Christie do you want? And it was only because one of my sidekicks, who is a vicar's daughter, sort of went like that under the because she knew what was coming, that we got into the dialogue. And that's how it started. And whenever those of you that are, have we got any historians in here? We've got any theologians here? We've got anybody that knows this? Because if we have, I'll work harder to keep the facts straight, and if we haven't, I can say what I like and you'll believe it anyway. You've got to do your research, and so you get on the internet, don't you? That's what we do these days, and you think, mystery plays, and all what pops up is York, because York is held up as being the centre of the mystery play world. And luckily for me, York were holding a conference, not unlike this, a few weeks later. So I emailed the guy, said we're thinking about doing some mystery plays in Gloucester, I'd like to come and hear about what it's all about. By the way, these are just images of the Passion cycle that we did, and it's my test that if you're watching the screen, I'm not saying the right things, and if you're not watching the screen, I'm on book. We got invited up, they greeted us with open arms, and in a day I went from ignorance to knowledge to fear. Because within this room it was full of people from America, South Africa, Australia, all over the UK. Learned, educated, the head of medieval drama at Bristol University. And this, all of a sudden you think, Christ, there is a responsibility attached to doing this. This isn't something you can do on a whim, whether you're being whimsical about a Christian story or not. There is a responsibility historically about these plays. So what gives them their gravitas? Well, basically, records show that they start in about the 5th century, and they start very much as we started today with tableau. And it was a way that the church used to just give a visual image to what was being preached from the pulpit. So they were put at the front of the churches in tableau form, purely as a physical reference, point of reference. And then slowly through the years, that gets added to and added to and added to. But still kept very down until about the 10th century, when the thing starts to really gather some speed. And they then are performed between the 10th and, I'll keep this very brief, 10th and the 16th century, hitting their real mark in the 15th century when they were right across Europe. And basically it was a way of preaching the gospel stories to an ignorant population, or an illiterate population, who couldn't read. You couldn't give them a Bible, they couldn't read it. It was in Latin anyway. They were originally performed in Latin. And they became so popular that one of the popes, whose name will come back to me in a minute, Innocent, banned the clergy from being in them, because clergy aren't supposed to be popular, are they? And at that point, there is this marked shift away from the church and into the guilds. And a lot of people think that mystery plays means, the mystery of God, mystery of life. The mystery comes from the Latin, and it basically means occupation. And that's because these were performed by people of different occupations who took responsibility for certain plays. And the scripts that got written almost became York will outdo Chester, Chester will outdo Coventry, Coventry will outdo Lichfield. And there was this competitiveness that comes with every businessman when he's given responsibility by his city council. We want you to do this, please. This is your community responsibility. You pay for the bloody wagon it's going to go on. You finance it. You spread the story. And I find that when this all came out, I found this quite interesting because the way this broke down, it broke down in a way that fitted the guild. So the slaughter of the innocents was done by the Guild of Butchers. The crucifixion was done by the Guild of Undertakers. So there was this split into the stories. And York has taken on the mantle, really, of the regeneration of these plays since the 1950s. Reformation killed them. They went away for a while, then they came back. So, in a way, although you could say without the mystery plays there wouldn't be passion plays, clearly that you can't make that statement because there's a great script called the Bible. But I think as far as performance is concerned, mystery plays are now academically accepted as being the birth of modern theatre. The first time that scripts were written for multiple performers to perform a story on a stage to tell a story. So you could say without the mystery plays there wouldn't be Shakespeare, if you stretched it really thin. So they are vitally important in my book. And considering that I've been involved in theatre for 20 years before this came about, for me not to know that, and for the people I meet who are in theatre who actually don't know that, you sort of wonder why this isn't much bigger than it really is. So that's in a very short span of time, that's where they've come from. Very heavily medieval based, because that was when they were at their strongest. And so what we have is a medievally driven Google of its time. If you want to know the question, the show is coming to you. And they performed all around Europe and landed in villages when they had their annual festivals, because that's when they could guarantee an audience. Everyone came into the town, to the markets, and they would go in with their wagons and they would perform their plays. So that's, in a very tight nutshell, that's where we are with those. So I go off to York and I'm hearing all of this, and I'm meeting Herod's wife and I'm meeting all of these really interesting people who are putting on these things. York have been doing it since 51, Chester have been doing it since 51, York on wagon, Chester on statutory stage. York have their own scripts, Chester have some script, Lichfield have some script, Coventry have some script. And somewhere amongst all of this, all these fragments of scripts were pulled together, and a script that is generally used by people like me who are trying to recreate an event. The end town scripts are put together. But when we came away from that, having made all these various connections, we sat in a hotel room that night, and I had my potential scriptwriter with me, and I had my potential musical director with me, and we're scratching our heads saying, do we actually take this on? Because it's one of those things that if you're going to take it on, you can't do it wrong. And how much do you take on? Because York only do about 15 plays every 5 years. They don't do the complete cycle. And this is where my character works against me, because I don't half do things. So it's like, well, if we're going to create the Gloucester mystery plays, we're going to have to create the entire Gloucester mystery plays, and we're going to have to rewrite the end town scripts, because I want a Gloucester mystery play script, and if we're going to have a Gloucester mystery play script, I actually want new music to go with that mystery play script. And so we set a task that frankly, in ignorance, you take on, and with knowledge you wouldn't touch with a barge pole. But once you're down that road, I'm sure we've all had this, it just grows and grows. So with the support of York and with the support of Professor Pam King of Bristol University, head of medieval drama, who knows more, has forgotten more than I'll ever remember, and who had her own wagon for years at York, staggering woman who's now in Edinburgh, moved to Edinburgh. Find her, you need her. We set about creating the Gloucester Mystery Plays. Now, if you live in a medieval town, if you live in a medieval city that was there in the 15th century, 14th century, even though you haven't got scripts, I can almost guarantee plays will have been performed in your town. And therefore you do have an historical claim to regenerating this as a community event. Remember that when I get to the end and tell you about what we're doing next. It took us, obviously, some time to produce all that, and what we needed then was a cast of millions, because we are talking 40 plays, although each play is anything between 5 and 15 minutes long. They do need casting, and you've got to orchestrate this. And so what could we do? Where could we go? I had a theatre company, but it wasn't big enough. I had lots of friends around. And there was an organisation called the Gloucestershire Drama Association, which had been there since the 70s, which had about 16 members. And I thought, well, we'll go there, because 16 members, 16 theatre companies, that just about do it, would it? So we went there, thinking they had a lot more than 16, and found out they got 16. And I'm a sucker for a lost cause, me. If you want me to do something for you, tell me it can't be done, and I'll prove you wrong. So I went to the meeting. I knew the chairman, because he's a fellow actor. And I went to the meeting thinking I was going to go and ask about could we get to their members and see if they wanted to take part. And I came out of the meeting as chairman, because unfortunately for me, the meeting I went to was their AGM. And we took control of Gloucestershire Drama Association that evening. We hadn't planned to. And then we went hunting. And we went hunting to see just how many theatre companies there are in the county. And as you said, there are 90 theatre companies. A bit like Bewdley, Gloucester is a very arty environment. Painters, sculptures, poets, they're coming out of every orifice. So we contacted all 90 groups and we go, right, here is a showcase production which is open to all, and we want you to come and audition. We then went to all the churches and said, as everyone has, there's a lot of similarity I've heard this morning, and said, we're doing this, we want to engage. And as with our friend there, you put the call out for audition and thousands, they're queuing around the block. So cast wasn't an issue. So we broke the plays into the two cycles. They basically run from creation to Judgment Day, so it's the Old and New Testament right the way through. And we did, and this is another mistake I made, you shouldn't really end on the slaughter of the innocents at Christmas. It sort of kills the mood a bit. You've had the nativity and everyone's going, yay! And then you just don't quite know when to stop, do you, Phil? And you end up and you think, that should have been put at the beginning of the next bit. But we didn't. So we just murdered lots of children in the cathedral on Christmas Eve. It was wonderful. So we cast the first one, and you live and learn. We cast the first one by basically breaking it into 4 directors, 4 groups of plays, 4 casts, because we thought that would be a simple thing to do. That was a nightmare thing to do, and I would say anybody taking this on, don't do that. Never work with multiple directors on a single evening to do it. Just and it didn't deliver good theatre because of it. And the reason why you're seeing the pictures from the Passion cycle is that I wouldn't want to show you the pictures from the first cycle, really, because it makes it disjointed. And that one was done because the artistic director that oversaw all of that, don't take this the wrong way, had come from a church point of view. It was exactly it was bad school nativity. Do you know what I mean? It was gold faces. And so we learnt a lesson on that one, and when we go back and do this again at some point, when I can afford to lose another couple of years in my life, we won't do it that way. What that told me was that in order to put on the second production, we had to go professional. or semi-professional, single director. And I am blessed that I have in my group of friends a woman called Sheila Mander, who is mildly legendary. She's 80 years of age. She's got more energy than me. She talks faster than me, and she makes things grow even bigger than I make grow, which is always scary. The only difference with me is I make things grow and they don't cost me any money. She makes things grow and they cost me a fortune. So whereas I think we probably put on the first cycle for maybe £5,000, second one cost me 25 grand. Because it's professionally lit, it's professionally staged, and so forth and so on. So, but what we delivered on the second one was breathtaking. And the reaction that it got and the community that it pulled in was staggering. And this is the power of passion play, mystery play, and miracle play. It does touch people. And it touches the most peculiar people that you can think of. I mean, for instance, when we're talking sponsorship, if you go to Sainsbury's and you go, I'm doing Richard III, Gloucester, we're doing educating reading, we're doing the passion plays, and it's the biblical stories, and we're doing them in a cathedral, and it's a community project, and blah, 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 blah. Bing! I can't give you money, Phil, but I can give you this, I can give you that, I can give you this. I can connect you to all of our education people that go out into the schools, so they've all got them, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, all Morrison's, all the same. It just seems to be something that I've never found producing something simpler. It's not a hard sell. It reaches people. If you want to reach the education department, we were just talking about this now, if you go to your cathedral and you go to their education department and you talk to their educational person, they will very happily put you to the church schools. And the church schools will greet you relatively with open arms, and they will promote what you're doing to the schools, and you'll get in with workshops, and you'll get the schools to take part. If you go to the state system, you will hit a brick wall, because politically the state system cannot be seen to promote a religion, because there are multi-faith schools, and they have to be seen to be across all things. I'm not saying they won't do it, but you're going to have a hard sell. If you're looking for funding, mystery plays at the moment are seen as a community project. Arts Council funding is hard to get. For the professional companies, much easier to get to the professional companies if they're doing reach out to the community. You tick all the boxes. We had the full support of the Everyman in Cheltenham, who did workshops for us for lighting, workshops for us for voice, and have engaged. So, when the local council heard that we were doing mystery plays at Gloucester Cathedral and Worcester Cathedral, because they went to both cathedrals, I get a call from the city council. It's usually the way around. Will you see me? No. Will you see me? No. I got a call from the head of the city council saying, would I go and see them? And they came to me and they said, we're looking for something to bring in tourism. Do you think you could take your plays into the streets of Gloucester in the same way as York do as a major tourist event? If you will, Phil, we'll give you 30k. And I said, well, I probably could, but I want 50. Well, they started it. So we suddenly engaged with the city council. All of this was done as a fundraising exercise for the cathedral. Jeremy Irons turns up at the cathedral to film Hollow Crown. And I'm talking to one of the ladies from the cathedral, and she says, oh, she's got a picture on her desk of her and Jeremy Irons. And I went, oh, you met Jeremy? Oh, yeah, he's a lovely man. He said, anything you could do to help us, he'd be very pleased to hear from us. And I thought, how long have you known that piece of information? Because it was about 6 months after he'd been. I said, you didn't think you'd tell me that? And he said, no. I said, well, I got his email address, yes. Jeremy Irons is now the patron of my theatre company, the mystery plays, and my theatre. And with 3 weeks to go before this production, I lost God. Not that one, the old git that was playing it who let me down. I just lost it. Something happened and he couldn't continue. And I just thought, well, it hasn't got to be a person, has it? I mean, the voice of God in the passion sequence that we do, you don't see him, it's a voice. So you get on the phone to Jeremy Irons, like you do, and you go, don't suppose you could do me a favour, could you? You wouldn't mind being, you know, as you're playing the Pope in the Borgias, how do you fancy a bit of promotion? Wonderful. And doing the voice of God for me. I don't care where you are, I'll bring a sound man, you know. And he went, well, I'm at home on Wednesday, Phil, can you get to Oxford? And next thing I know, I'm sitting having coffee with Jeremy Irons on his front kitchen table and making a recording of the voice of God. I mean, what a bizarre... And since then, he's been, every time I go to him and say, guess what, I've got a theatre now. Oh, yeah, okay, fine. Okay, fine. So he's been wonderful, he really has. And we had the, Jeremy, I mean, you could hear people, bums on seats, tightening when God came, because he's got that voice, hasn't he? You know, it's just breathtaking. So, the journey that I think we've all been on, the point I'm making here, the journey we've all been on regarding this is phenomenal. This topic seems to just suck things in. And when I was asked to put a title on this speech, I jokingly replied to Liz, and I was joking actually, and I put, you know, okay, how about what have the Romans ever done for us? Because that was the other funny thing I had, because when you're doing a crucifixion, you know, I needed some Romans, and I thought, well, we've got the Ermine Street Guard in Gloucester, which is a reenactment thing. You've got all the thinking money. I haven't got to buy any costumes. They've got them all because they're all anally, you know, about the costumes. So I get the guy who leads the Ermine Street Guard in a coffee shop in Gloucester and said, look, you know, I'm doing the mystery plays about all the, you know, story of Christ, crucifixion. And he went, well, yeah, but they're medieval. And I said, yeah. And he said, yeah, but we're Roman. And I went, yeah. And he didn't. And I said, you know what? When you're crucifying Christ, a few Romans come in really handy. And all of a sudden, the penny dropped. So you can plug into people really well. So this grew and grew and grew, and because it grew and grew and grew, we were being watched, and our scripts were sent down to Bristol University to be edited because I wanted them to be academically acceptable. And Pam King offered her patronage to do all of that, which was great because her name on the bottom of anything is mustard. And those scripts are available if anybody wants to put plays on, and they are modern English, but they do have the same Shakespearean flow, lilt, as the original scripts do. We've kept them in the same format, we've just tidied up the language a bit. The music for the plays, if you want that music, is there for anybody to take. And this is where it brought us to in the end. This creation of the 90 theatre companies, this Gloucestershire Theatre Association, which has now been created, which is not unlike, I think, the concept of the Passion Trust, but maybe we've taken it a little bit further, is, as a producer, as someone that puts on major theatre on a regular basis, because I just can't help myself, the trouble with theatre, amateur theatre particularly, and even professional theatre, and we've mentioned it today even with sets and stuff, is that you have lots of people who are doing their bit there, and their bit there, and their bit there, and they're struggling for this, and they're struggling for that, and they haven't got the costumes, and they haven't got any money either. Well, hang on a minute, we all use lighting, we all use sound, we all use script, we all use costume, we all need staging. What are we playing at? You know, I've got staging in my work. So my work actually has got more theatrical sets in the warehouses than it's got product to sell. Because that's just, you know. So if anybody, you know, so then where we've got this set here, for instance, that set is in storage. It is available. It will fit anywhere. It is completely manoeuvrable. It has an 18-foot steel cross with a professional mechanism passed by Health and Safety and the Everyman Theatre. You can crucify Christ really high on that and he won't fall off. And it's been sitting in storage for the last 3 years. What a waste. So, if you want to crucify somebody, I'm your man. So what we have is this over-encompassing organisation now with a chat room where these theatre companies come in and go, has anybody got a Victorian wheelchair? Has anybody got the script for so-and-so? No, has anybody got bloody Wizard of Oz Lollipop Guild costumes for dwarfs? I mean, sometimes I think this is really, very occasionally I'm looking for a man and I have to go back and say, this is not sort of website. And then they come back and say, no, of a certain age to play this part, Phil, don't be a prat. So, but what we've got is this community. So you've got a community of theatrical people that now interact, and we now have an awards evening like the bloody Oscars, and we go out and Best Actress, and oh God, fight. We've got a community now around the cathedral, which is enlarged because of this. We have created 2 new theatre companies out of the mystery play companies because they don't want to stop. So they went on to do another community project, which was the World War I project we've just done, which again was a script that we had written with some people from London who came up and did workshops, and we all contributed, came up with this wonderful play. I then went to see the Royal Shakespeare Company Christmas Truce play, and I just sat there thinking, plagiarism. But of course, it's a bit like your passion plays. There's only a certain story to tell, and so there are common points. But the warning I would put to your passion play is, and I know it's church-based, and I know it's not preachy, but it's there to give a message, but mix it up. Because if you are going to repeat it every other year or every year, you're going to get an audience that goes, well, I went twice and it wasn't that much different, and so I've seen it really. And over time, you'll find it will do this. And the analogy I would draw is Shakespeare, actually, where, you can go and see Macbeth, and it can be in Dublin Hose. You can go and see Macbeth, and it can be pirates. You can go and see Macbeth, and it's based in the First World War. You can go and see Macbeth, and it's based in a hospital. So in effect, you'll go and see Macbeth 6 times because it's a different Macbeth. The story is the same, the script is the same, but the visual experience is slightly different. So artistically, mix it up. So where's all this got me, besides into trouble? When the council came to me and said they're going to give us £30,000, we wanted to raise a lot of money. The only way you're going to raise a lot of money is to do something on a major scale. The only way to do something on a major scale is to get a major artist and to build an event around what we're trying to do. So as York do in the streets, we were going into the streets for Wagon, we decided we were going to make a big medieval weekend event of it. Jousters, the drunken monks running pubs, all the reenactment people coming in, stalls in the streets. And even that doesn't make you money because, as you'll know from doing plays in the streets, people don't put pounds in buckets. They just don't do it. Great free day out. It's a free day out. They won't put money in buckets. So what could we do to make it all work? And I had to be on the medieval theme, and the only thing I could think of, and it's not because I'm of a certain age, it's because my brother's older than me and he liked him. But Rick Wakeman in the 70s wrote 3 major rock operas. Wives of Henry VIII, Gin Centre of the Earth, and The Myths and Legends of King Arthur. So, a bit like Jeremy Irons, because you can reach people so easily now through the internet, we just emailed Wakeman and said, you haven't performed King Arthur in 30 years, do you fancy coming and doing it for us on this weekend? And the bugger said yes. And then we found out why he hadn't written it, why he hadn't performed it in 30 years. And I'm in a restaurant with him in London, and we met to talk about this. And I'm saying, well, why haven't you done this for 30 years then, Rick? And he went, I lost the music. He says, before we had CDs and computers, and he said, we performed it in New York. It's a full orchestra, full choir piece. All the scripts went into the box, and when they got back to the UK, they put them into storage. 3 years later, they went back to the box to go back on tour with it, opened the box, it was empty. If there'd been eBay 30 years ago, it'd have been on eBay by now, but it's never materialised, they never found it. And if you haven't got a faith, and if you don't believe in fate, this next bit's going to freak you out. So why does a man like Rick Wakeman say that he's going to do a piece of music that he hasn't got the music for me? Because he's had 3 heart attacks and 4 wives. I've told him to keep the 4th wife because clearly there's a pattern here. And he might not survive another heart attack. His first wife still lived in the house they lived in when he divorced her. He can only imagine that when he left her, he took everything that he wanted from the house, and she must have gone round and put everything that was his, still in the house, in a box and put it in the shed, literally in the shed. A month before my email arrived saying, would he come and perform this piece for us, he got a box delivered to him by UPS from his ex-wife who was moving house. And in the very bottom of that box, very damp and stuck together, was his original score for The Myths and Legends of King Arthur. Now, don't tell me there isn't a God in heaven. As it happened, and this is another lesson to be learnt, whatever a city council offer you in the way of cash, get it in bloody writing. Because at the point at which I had committed myself to contracts with Rick Wakeman, a major venue, all of this, wagons, you name it, put in thousands of hours of work, I suddenly get a bloke phone me up and say, can you come and have a chat, Phil? And the world had turned, and recession had hit, and the hunters were on, and guess whose 30k they wanted back? So, the Rick Wakeman thing had to happen because I was quite a lot of money committed, and as a result of that, the street festival had to go because I couldn't reorganise both in the scale. So Wakeman happened, we had a great 4 shows, sold out, loved it, and it was an experience. The street performances, because for me it's unfinished business, will happen in 2016. It will be a full medieval weekend with medieval plays, but because my standing within the mystery play world has risen to me and Roger from York, my mate Rog, and Professor King from Bristol, who's now at Edinburgh, I'm not going to put on the plays again because frankly it'd kill me. Why not have an organisation that umbrellas mystery plays? Why should I have to create drama when I've got people with exactly the same problem you've got of keeping casts infused and people involved in the 5-year gaps or 3-year gaps or 2-year gaps between doing theirs? Because York's only 5 years, Chester is 3, Lichfield is 4. They've all got these gaps. So we've created a thing called Medfest. And Medfest stands for Medieval European Drama Festivals Encouraging Social Tourism. And the key in that is social tourism. Because if you want to access money, social tourism is the word you want to put in your letter to your city councils. Medfest now sits over the mystery play groups and links us. The gathering in 216 in Gloucester will be all medieval mystery play cities coming together to perform in the streets of Gloucester. York will bring 3 wagons, Lichfield will come and do shows, This is open to any passion groups who might want to come along and take part. And I reckon if we get enough of you, we can crucify Christ on the hour, every hour, all day, outside Gloucester Cathedral. On my 18-foot high steel, because I've got to get used, I've got to get it oiled and get it used in the end. So there is this body now created. Now the funny thing with that is I got asked to go and speak at a European conference in Budapest by Pam King, and it blows my mind because they're academic, and I didn't, I'm a high school boy. I got a job at 17. I didn't go to university. I'm not very bright really. And Pam King, who to me is just this godhead of all things medieval, and I said to her, send me some bullet points because I'm coming here. Just some basic bullet points, Pam. 5 pages later, I'm thinking, I can't even start looking at that, I'm just going to wing it. But that's just Pam, she lived and breathed it. This woman has the job I would kill for. This woman travels the world, going to every festival you can think of, in the name of research. So you get an email, I'm in Brazil at the moment, Phil, at Mardi Gras. Oh, are you? Well, that's tough, isn't it, really? It's a hard life. Can you pop that on for me? This woman believes firmly, and I think she's absolutely right, that the key to a lot of the world's problems at the moment is this drama, is this connectivity, is this shared experience, be it religious or be it non-religious. She has researched, as I say, and has done a lot of work all around the world on the various historical festivals that take place, the procession of a Madonna statue, the Holy Host, in the most backwater parts of the world. And I think that in this time of fractured religions, in this time of problems in the community, give people a common something, anything that they can focus on. I have taken over a theatre, the Olympus Theatre in Gloucester. I took it over because when I had the problems with the city council, I went looking for a cheaper venue to put Wakeman into, and I couldn't find one. In the end, I went to the Centaur at the racecourse in Gloucester, which is a massive big, Chatham, it's a massive big venue. But in my hunt, I came across this, and I've been in the city 20 years, came across the Olympus Theatre, which I know nothing about. Why? It's been shut for 20 years. And it's one of those surreal moments where you get into this building and you get in through the back, and as you go into the theatre, through the back, the stage door's there. You go into the stage door. I went onto the stage, and somebody hit the lights, and the lights came up. And in the stalls area, there's a pile of stone, a pile of rubble, a pile of timber, no chairs. And then there is this Edwardian, Victorian sweeping balcony full of all the plaster, fine art stuff, and the seats that are original back to its 1900 build. I didn't even know it was there. Why? Been for 20 years. As I said before, I'm a sucker for a lost cause. Once we've got Misplace out of the way, I go back and I kick it on. So that theatre last year hosted 2 international theatre festivals. It hosted the university end of term production. It hosted a number of amateur shows. It hosted the Royal Ballet School, who came in to do stuff for us. And we've then hit a stumbling block in November with the ownership, and we've had to pull out. And 2 days after this is when you think there isn't a God in heaven, by the way. 2 days after I pulled out, I get an email from Shakespeare's Globe. Can we come to you? We've heard about your theatre. Can we come and do Romeo and Juliet, please, in March? And I put off until last night, telling them that they couldn't. And it breaks you in half. But there is a God in heaven. Why? Because I'm now talking to the Globe. What's the next project? Back to the cathedral. I've lived in Gloucester 25 years. I'm around the cathedral. Purely by accident, somebody mentions, oh, it's Henry III's 800th anniversary of his coronation next year. And I went, yeah. And I said, what's that got to do? He said, well, here. Or in the original abbey. So I go, well, there's a bit of a hook for a play. Must be a play, mustn't there? Henry III, got to be a play. Is there a play? No, there isn't a play. Of course there isn't a bloody play. What do? We commission a play. Because I want to do Henry III, 800 years to the day, in the cathedral, as a fundraiser for them. Then I put it out in my newsletter, and somebody goes, oh, we're doing John. Worcester Cathedral it was. Worcester Cathedral got up, because they get my newsletter, they said, oh, we're doing John. And I went, John who? I'm not very bright, I told you. No, very poor education. King John. Yeah, you know, the one that's buried here. Yeah. Magna Carta film. Yeah. 800 years to the day. Yeah. So I get in touch with Worcester Rep, and Worcester Rep are doing John, and I say, we're doing Henry III. You're doing John. We'll come to Worcester, you come to Gloucester. That's nice, isn't it? There it goes again, grow. And then someone says, you ought to talk to Magna Carta 800 project. They'd love this. And you go, Magna Carta who? Oh, it's Sir Robert Worcester. He's heading up. And by the way, the Queen's the, head of it all. And they've got a £20 million budget. Well, that was the magic words there, right there. So I send a letter to Robert Worcester, and he goes, oh, come. He said, what are you doing Thursday? Why? Well, we've got this grand launch in St Albans, Phil. Why didn't you come down? So I went out to this grand launch in St Albans. And I get put in a room, and a bit like this, they went, and here's Phil McCormick, he's doing 3 plays, he's doing 2 plays for Magna Carta, and there's all these people with Magna Carta historical ties up, and it's like, over to you, Phil. Now, I haven't got a script, I haven't got a cast, I haven't got a theatre company, I haven't got anything. By the time we left there, we were booked at Runnymede, we were booked at, it's fucking ridiculous. And then I think, hang on a minute, do people really know the story of Magna Carta? And the truth is, actually, no, they don't really. That's true of Magna Carta at all. A bit like the mystery plays. So I thought, well, I might as well put in Lion in Winter as well and give them the whole John. So we now have the Three Kings tour. And the Three Kings tour is booked to appear in all sorts of weird and wonderful places. Except, the nearer we got to it, because all good ideas get pinched in the end, you'll learn this. As we get nearer to it, people start to go, well, we're doing John and we're doing John. And when the Globe came back to me and said, actually, Phil, we're doing John. And I went, I quite fancy you better than I fancy Worcester Rep, actually. And so we've now hooked them in as well. So my Three Kings tour is now actually gone back to being just my new play. But that 80-year-old woman I told you about at the beginning of this tour, I foolishly asked her to direct it for me. And she's seen the script, I hadn't even seen the script yet. And she came to me, I'm going to stop in a minute, she came to me and she said, come for a coffee. That's always very dangerous when Sheila invites you for a coffee. And I went in, she says, right, I've seen the script, it's bloody marvellous. She said, it's far too big to do in the cathedral. So I've had a chat with so-and-so, and a bit like yourself, she's been in the game forever, and she's so well connected. I spoke to so-and-so, and I was at a funeral on Friday, and I bumped into so-and-so, and she works in Whitehall. And they've got a thing from the government to anti-terrorism thing and community and da-da-da-da, and she's saying she thinks she can get us 50k, and I think I need 100. So that only leaves us 50 to find, doesn't it? In a week, this last week, we have the Barbican, we have the Globe, we have 3 community theatre companies in East London that deal with drugs and drink and homeless people, and this thing is going to go national. And that is the miracle of saying yes to doing a mystery play. It will change your life, but not always in a good way. Thank you very much.